my KTM 390 Adventure versus the Big Bend BDR-X, where there are large sections of paved roads, but then there is also quite a bit of off-road riding, Jeep trail type riding that is dry, dusty, rocky, sandy, powdery, hot, windy, isolated, and desolate. So, how will this bike do? Let's find out. Hey, how's it going? Welcome to my channel. Guess I don't need this glove on. I wanted to ride the Big Bend BDR-X because, you know, it added some structure to the routing out here. This is my third time to Big Bend, and I really wasn't planning to ever come back here. But now that there is this BDR-X out here, I thought I would give it a try and see if my experience in Big Bend was any different than what I had had before. Now, last year I rode my Tenere 700 down here and I absolutely hated it. The road riding to get down here was absolutely miserable. The trusty KTM 390 Adventure with its new Viridian cruise control made the ride down here easy. It was 400 miles to get to Van Horn, which is the northern part of the BDR-X and the beginning of section 5. So I blasted out section 5. It was all paved. It was fun, lots of curves, perfectly suited for this bike. And then I rode about half section 1 and didn't camp. I stayed in a storage container that had been converted to a cabin. And again, all that was paved roads, super easy. And that left me right about halfway through section 1, which is where I'm at now. Now, the difficulty in filming a BDR-X video is in the national park. They have very strict controls on what I can and can't do. So it's gonna be pretty limited on what I film in the park, but there is enough stuff outside of the park and things that I can talk about that hopefully it'll give you an idea of how this bike is going to perform doing this trip. So far, I've hit some sandy sections, I've hit some silty sections, and this bike is incredibly easy to ride compared to other bikes that I have ridden. It kind of blows through things, and it's just intuitive and easy. So I really don't expect to have any trouble, but let's find out what happens as we travel the other sections. I stopped at the end of section 1 where there's a little camp store. All they had was prepackaged sandwiches. If you want junk food, there was plenty of junk food. So that was a little bit challenging, just for trying to find something to eat. So keep that in mind if you have the space or if you have special dietary considerations, then make sure you carry that with you. So after that, I jumped on River Road, and I wasn't sure what to expect on River Road, and there ended up being more challenging sections than what I had anticipated. There was some sandy sections. I expected to see a few, but there was a few more than I expected. There were some deep gravel sections. I ran into some guys that had gotten on the deep gravel sections, and they were really, really struggling. Everything okay?
Yeah, we got turned around. I think we're supposed to be over there, and we got bit by this deep shit.
Well, that comes together right at the bottom.
Down there?
Yeah, just right there, it splits.
If we got off on this up there, we've been down a couple times, and it screws up the tip sensor, and the throttle is like all messed up, I guess, until it's cleared.
Got it. Oh, where are you trying to get to?
We're just trying to run the River Road.
Where did you start?
On the west end. So we're going that way, east.
You got a long way to go.
Yeah, I know.
It gets bad. There's some spots that are really bad.
Ahead?
Yes. There's some really chunky hill climbs, and there's some really, this is gravel. There's talcum powder sand sections.
Really?
Yeah.
Sounds like we're going the other way.
So depending on how you feel about this is easier than some of the other sections.
Why tell him that?
I'll let you tell him that.
I mean, this is our first time out, and not to do.
Yeah. It happens fast.
Down 3 times, and the first 2 were within like the first 20 minutes.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, there's something I'm doing wrong.
Well, it's not going to get, it doesn't get easier. I'm going to tell you that. It does not get easier.
That's good to know.
First like 5 miles on the east side is fine, but then it starts getting into more of this, and then you'll have long sections that are hard pack, and then it'll dip down some hills. There was a section of hills there where there's river rock sized rocks up and down the hills, and it's loose. So you gotta give it to get up it.
Typical over there?
What's that?
Is that typical over there, or is it just kind of the conditions right now?
Typical.
Okay.
Yeah.
Probably didn't know that.
Yeah, there was a couple coming in from the other side, and they had a rental bike and a bike they just bought. I don't know how, that neither of them have a lot of off-road experience, so I don't know how they're going to do it.
Yeah.
I don't know what was going on, but they were stuck there for a very long time, and I had to tell them that going the other direction was not the right way to go. There was also some steep, loose hill climbs that it was just like a lot of baby heads or river rock. It was very smooth. It wasn't very chunky. And there was quite a few of those uphills and some descents. But the whole point of this is, how did this bike do? Did awesome. I was so happy with the way this bike performed. Whether it was going through the sand, as long as my momentum didn't get interrupted, which it did several times, I was able to go pretty easily. There was a few times I had some struggles where I, had to throw some feet down and keep myself up from falling over, but it wasn't a big deal. It's a lightweight bike. There are no drops today. And then the climbs, the uphill climbs where it was chunky, it just climbed right up it, and I had no issues. It maintained really good traction, which really gets me into, I want to go over some of the things that I've done to this bike to make it ready for this type of riding. And one other note I want to make before I do that is there were a lot of dirt bikes out here, tons of dirt bikes, 690s. I saw a Cove, I think it was a 450, CRF 450s. I saw a lot of bikes, but the one thing none of those bikes had, luggage. I was the only one rocking luggage on this route. They are camping, trailered somewhere, and are just doing loops. So it was really fun to roll up on these guys on their decked out dirt bikes on my 390, and you could just see the expression on their face is like, what are you doing out here? And I had no problems with it. This bike just performed really well. The one thing I will say that you really need to do if you're going to do any of this type of riding is you need good knobby tires. I know these are killing me. So the question I get all of the time is, what tires do I use? So I have a Bridgestone Battle Axe AX41 up front. It is my absolutely favorite front tire, especially in the 19-inch. It's spaced more than it is on a 21-inch, so it works really, really well on this bike. I don't have problems with this tire washing out. It tracks exactly where I want to go. Even in deep sand or deep gravel, it does really, really well. And then in the back, I use the Heidenau K60 Scout. The typical K60 Scout, when you first hear that, you're thinking of that center strip, a really hard compound. In this tire size, the 130/80 R17, it does not have that center strip. So it is lugs, it is open. So I get a lot of traction out of that tire, and it wears really, really well. The other thing that I've done that I think has made a really big difference is I have the fork extenders provided to me by Nice CNC, not to plug it, but because it rakes out the front end, it makes it more stable in those sandy and gravelly conditions. And I had no problem just planing out and cruising down that. And I wasn't getting any head shake out of it, and it was really, really easy to ride. The other thing that did for me is it gives me more ground clearance. I only heard a couple of rocks even flip up into my skid plate, and there were places that I think if I was at a standard height, I would have bottomed out on a number of rocks and some of the dips and stuff that I was going through. The other thing that I think it was really important is the fork springs. Putting in stiffer fork springs has made a huge difference in the way that this bike performs. It stays higher in its travel. It doesn't bottom out as easily. And then of course the rear shock. without this rear shock, I am sure I would have blown out another stock one because they don't have great seals. So really the three key things that I think that has made this bike way better off-road and be able to tackle something like river road and more challenging stuff is the knobby tires, the fork extenders, and then the suspension. With those things, it makes such a big difference. It makes this bike really, really competent and capable. And to be honest, I had forgotten how much fun this bike was to ride off-road and how easy it is to ride off-road. I just, to be honest, I kind of just tore through it, and I didn't really give it a whole lot of thought on how I was getting through everything. I just did it. So this bike is pretty amazing. And so far, for sections 5, 1 and 2, got through it pretty easily. Now 3 is all road riding. I do want to add that some of you, if you're paying attention, you'll notice that I didn't talk about old or road. 2 reasons. One is when I'm riding by myself, even though there's a ton of people out here, I am still riding by myself. I try not to do any of the expert sections or the more advanced sections when I ride by myself. I'm about 30 miles short of finishing the cutoff that takes me through Pinto Canyon, which is where I'm at right now. The cutoff for section 4. And to answer the question or to see how the KTM 390 Adventure did versus Big Bend BDR-X, it actually performed way better than I was expecting. I was able to get through the gravel, the sand, the loose hill climbs much easier than I was actually expecting. This thing just chugs, and you know, you keep the RPMs up and it will do anything you ask of it. And then having the knobby tires, like I said before, it has performed so incredibly well. And I may have captured the bike lifting off of the air about this much, but that was only one of many times that I found myself catching air throughout this trip, which I don't normally do that. But this bike has felt really, really good. Thoughts on the Big Bend BDR-X is, it is probably the earliest BDR-X you can do in the season, which it's, today's March 1st. I just needed to get out and ride. So that's what I did, and I'm so glad I did. I was a little reluctant to leave. Weather was kind of questionable where I was coming out of, but being down here is incredibly warm. It's nice, and any excuse to be on the bike is worth it to me. So I think the Big Bend BDR-X, if you like riding in the desert, if you like or can tolerate doing sandy stretches and gravel, deep gravel, loose rocks, then you'll enjoy it. If you don't like that kind of terrain and you prefer more just wide open dirt roads, you may not enjoy it. The last thing I want to say is that it's been a while since I've done an extended trip on the 390 Adventure, and it has been awesome, and I just can't help but think how much better the new 390 Adventure R that's coming out is going to be. This thing did so well, but stepping up to that next one will be a really incredible experience. So for those of you that are planning on getting that bike, boy, you are in for some awesome times. And for those of you looking for a 390 Adventure, the first generation, there's gonna be a lot of deals coming up on these, because there's gonna be guys that are riders moving up from this bike up to the 390 Adventure R. So if you still want a very capable bike, but don't want to go out and get a new one, you'll get some great deals on these used ones. And there is so much you can do with these that I really, it's a great bike to wrench on and to get it set up for yourself. So anyway, I've belabored that point quite a bit. If you have done some BDRs on your 390 Adventure, let me know which ones those have been and what your experience has been in the comments below. If you're planning to do the Big Bend BDR-X on your 390 Adventure, also let me know that in the comments below. Now I want to add one more thing. I saw a lot of different bikes, a lot of different riders, but the one bike that I consistently kept seeing was this bike. I saw 4 other 390 Adventures cruising through Big Bend at different places, sometimes off-road, sometimes on-road, but I saw a bunch of these. Anyway, these bikes are everywhere. They are very popular, and with a few tweaks, you can make them awesome. Remember, you can always make more money, but you cannot make more time. So get out and do that ride you've been thinking about. Thanks for watching. Get out, do some riding, ride safe, and I will see you out there.